The second phase in design thinking is observe. This is actually a really important and exciting phase because it helps us to uncover people's behaviors, motivations, and anxieties to identify the right problem to solve. We might also actually uncover things that were previously completely unknown to us. So during this phase, we're actually getting into the shoes of the user to gain empathy. We move away from assumptions to actual knowledge. So the easiest way is actually getting out of the building and talking to real customers. We usually do this in interviews, which last between 40 and 90 minutes. Ideally, these interviews are done in pairs, so one person is actually taking the notes, so documenting the interview, while the other person is having the actual interview itself, so having the conversation with the participant. So when we run interviews, we have to be aware of a few things. The first thing is that people are actually nice, therefore they lie. So what happens is that you ask them about certain events and they can't really remember every single detail. So they're trying to make up a story just to please you as the interview person. Or a different scenario might be that they're just saying something which they think you as the interviewee would like to hear. So to avoid these kind of situations, we formulate the questions in a way that actually helps them to produce proper answers. So as a general rule in interviews, try and use open questions. If you ask closed questions, which can be answered with yes or no, it doesn't really give us any information. By asking open questions, it invites the person you're interviewing to tell a story and to reveal insights. In an interview, you really want to get the full story. So don't just take the first answer as granted and leave it at that. Ask for details, try and go deep by asking why several times. Because if you ask why 3 or 4 times, you get to a completely different level of insights than if you'd stop at the first time. Try and stick with the present or the past. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, so you don't really get proper facts by speculating what the user might do. Another important interview rule is to avoid leading questions. If you already imply certain things, the user will pick up on it. So, for example, saying, how difficult was this situation for you? You're already implying that it was actually a difficult situation, but maybe it was completely easy for the person. So I have 2 more tips for you. Firstly, sometimes it's really good to just shut up. You don't have to talk all the time. Let the other person tell you the stories. Second tip, try to be an active listener. This should feel like a conversation. So use your body language. Encourage the other person to speak, by nodding and actually being just a human being. Let's have a quick look at the actual interview structure. An interview is structured in 3 parts. The first part of the interview is to introduce yourself, introduce the project, and to build rapport, to have a good atmosphere as part of the interview. The second part of the interview, which is actually the main body, is to evoke stories. And the last part is to wrap up the interview, to reflect on what's been said, and to say simply thank you. So after you've conducted a series of interviews, you come together again as a team to synthesize all the research data. So what does it actually look like? First of all, we write down all the memorable quotes from the interviews onto post-its. We start by bringing everyone up to scratch within the team by sharing everything that we've learned in the interviews. And we do this by the so-called storytelling. So we go through the individual interviews and just basically let the others know what we've learned. The second step is to detach the interview data from the actual people and start grouping the post-its according to specific topics. The goal of this exercise is to detect patterns from the research data. The final step is actually to pull insights out of the research data, which will inform us for the next step. So what we'll get out of this phase is a deep understanding of the motivations, needs and problems of our target audience. In the next video, you will see how we create a point of view out of all this data from a customer perspective.